Hello guys, this is Real Recaps. In this video, I will talk about a 2023 American crime thriller film, Woman of the Hour. Before we start, I hope you will like and subscribe to the channel. 1977 in Wyoming. Sarah poses in front of the camera as Rodney Alcala continuously snaps pictures of her. Through her tears, she talks about her ex-boyfriend, and Rodney assures her everything is okay. Despite her distress, he keeps taking photos. Then, unexpectedly, he attacks her. By the time Sarah realizes how dangerous he is, it's too late. He strangles her until she loses consciousness but revives her by blowing air into her mouth. When she comes to, he resumes his assault. 1978 in Hollywood. Cheryl Bradshaw attends an audition, hoping it's her chance at a big break, but the casting directors aren't impressed. Her neighbor, Terry, also an aspiring actor, is baffled that she isn't landing any roles and reassures her that she's talented. When Cheryl confides in her agent, Helen, about her financial struggles, Helen arranges a spot for her on The Dating Game, a popular TV show that wasn't quite what Cheryl had hoped for. Although both she and Terry feel the show is beneath her, Cheryl knows it could give her the exposure she needs. Terry, hoping for something more in their relationship, is unconcerned about her participation. Cheryl, however, feels uneasy about Terry's touch, and things escalate after a night of drinking when she wakes up beside him the next day. 1979 in San Gabriel. An officer rouses a teenage girl named Amy, who is sleeping on a bench, and tells her to move along. Having run away from home, Amy wanders into a laundromat and eats some free Valentine's Day chocolates. Desperate for money, she tries to steal from a laundry machine but drops the coins, alerting the owner. She narrowly escapes and notices a man photographing her. The man, Rodney, apologizes, explaining that he's entering a photo contest and would like Amy to be his model. Flattered by his compliments, she quickly feels at ease and agrees to let him take her pictures. She even decides to accompany him afterward. Despite her nerves, Cheryl heads to ABC Studios, where Lisa, a friend of her agent, greets her, noting that her group of bachelors is already waiting. Her makeup artist, Marilyn, however, isn't impressed with the bachelors, dismissing them as fools. The Dating Game host, Ed Burke, stops by Cheryl's dressing room but barely makes an effort to get to know her. He advises her to avoid being too smart on stage to avoid intimidating the bachelors, adding that she should focus on smiling and laughing. Ed quickly brushes her hair, leaving Cheryl uncomfortable. As Ed hypes up the audience, Cheryl tries to keep calm, realizing this could be her career breakthrough. 1971 in New York City. A young woman named Charlie moves into a new apartment. While she's showering, the movers arrive, leaving her furniture on the curb after waiting for 10 minutes. When she sees Rodney photographing across the street, she asks him for help. The two carry her things inside, chatting and sharing drinks. Rodney talks about trying to connect with others, and after thanking him, Charlie begins to unpack. Realizing she's about to bid him goodbye, Rodney, aware that she's a stewardess, asks to take photos of her. Then, he turns violent, beating her and slamming her head onto the floor. Charlie's last vision is of Rodney wrapping a scarf around her head and taking more photos. Ed Burke introduces Cheryl to the audience and explains the rules of the dating game. A partition separates her from the three bachelors, who begin introducing themselves, each with a unique personality. When Rodney appears on screen, an audience member, Laura, recognizes him and tries to stay calm, though her boyfriend notices her unease. Cheryl reads the questions for the bachelors, even though she finds them dull. The first bachelor is slow to respond, while the second gives suggestive answers. Rodney's confident, clever responses make him an audience favorite, stirring memories for Laura, who eventually exits the studio in distress. As she leaves, she locks eyes with Cheryl, looking terrified. Cheryl, though uncomfortable, presses on with Ed Burke's encouragement. Meanwhile, Laura sits in her car, sobbing over memories of her best friend. 1977, Los Angeles Times. A young man named Mario begins working with Rodney, who boasts about photos he took of a 13-year-old girl commissioned by her parents. Rodney later invites Mario to the beach to photograph him, but their office receives an unexpected visit from the police. Rodney lies, claiming it's a follow-up after a recent break-in. Knowing someone has reported him, he's anxious about the rumors circulating among co-workers. Mario declines the beach invitation, claiming they're understaffed, though Rodney suspects Mario is uneasy. The next day, Laura finds her friend dead in a beach house. Marilyn senses Cheryl's discomfort and suggests she do what feels right, knowing she won't be back for another episode. Motivated, Cheryl decides to change the questions that Ed originally provided. Meanwhile, backstage, Bachelor 2 makes crude comments about Cheryl, while Rodney dismissively remarks that it doesn't matter since he always ends up with the girls anyway. Laura then confides to her boyfriend, Ken, that Bachelor 3 was the last person seen with her friend Allison before her death. She blames herself for leaving Allison with a guy who gave her a bad feeling and explains that she shared a description with the police. Ken, however, remains doubtful, suggesting that if it were the same person, the police would have already intervened. Frustrated, Laura decides to take matters into her own hands. During the second round of the show, Cheryl asks entirely new questions that leave the bachelors struggling to respond. The audience is entertained, but Ed Burke is visibly annoyed by the shift in direction. Rodney remains the center of attention, making respectful comments about women while exposing Bachelor 2's objectifying remarks. Meanwhile, Laura approaches a security guard, urgently requesting to speak with someone from the dating game crew, claiming that her friend's killer is on stage. She's asked to wait for the show's producer, George Elliott. Ed, still upset, tells Lisa he never wants Cheryl back on the show. As Bachelor 2 confronts Rodney over his remarks, Rodney proposes they discuss it later and hands him a photo of a woman, bound and beaten. Laughing, he claims the image is fake. When it's time for Cheryl to pick her match, she chooses Bachelor 3, politely dismissing the others. Bachelor 2, however, cautions her about Rodney before leaving. Ed congratulates Cheryl and Rodney on their all-expenses-paid trip to Carmel, California. Tired of waiting, Laura asks a janitor where she can find George Elliott, only to learn he is George and has been brushing her off. After the show, Lisa hurries Cheryl out of the building. In the parking lot, she encounters Rodney, who says he was waiting for her. She explains she had been looking for him at the studio, but before she can leave, Rodney invites her somewhere. During their date, Rodney tries to charm Cheryl, though his attempts come off awkwardly. She laughs at one of his comments, but he's clearly offended. Attempting to recover, she explains she doesn't go on many dates and is unsure of what to say. When Rodney orders more drinks, Cheryl subtly signals the waitress to decline, who then tells Rodney the bar is closing soon. Still, he insists on getting her contact information to discuss their trip. Reluctantly, Cheryl gives him a phone number, but when he asks her to repeat it, she stumbles, revealing her reluctance. Sensing this, Rodney mutters a threat under his breath. Alarmed, Cheryl hurries to her car, aware that Rodney is following her. She fumbles with her keys as he approaches, but fortunately, other people enter the parking lot, prompting Rodney to retreat. Cheryl escapes safely. Laura, meanwhile, reconciles with her boyfriend and makes yet another report at the police station, frustrated by their inaction. Cheryl then packs up, bids farewell to her agent, and leaves, intending to start anew. Back to 1979, Rodney asks Amy about her family, and she openly responds to his questions. Before their trip even concludes, he suspects that she's a runaway. She offers him some chocolate, mentioning it's Valentine's Day. By the time they arrive at the hill where Rodney wants to take photos, the sun is already setting. Amy begins posing as instructed, turning around and looking up as Rodney requested. Then, taking advantage of the moment, Rodney unexpectedly attacks her from behind. Later, Amy awakens, bruised and in pain, with Rodney lying beside her. She cleverly calms him, asking him to keep their wild night a secret to avoid judgment. Her calm demeanor causes Rodney to trust her, and he unties her, apologizing for his rough behavior. Amy smiles, assuring him everything's fine. They encounter another vehicle on the drive back, but Amy remains silent. Stopping at a gas station, Rodney leaves her alone in the car, giving her the chance to escape. She runs to a nearby building, while Rodney, washing blood from his hands, returns to find her gone. He panics when a police car arrives, but with nowhere to hide, he's cuffed and taken into custody as Amy finally reaches safety. Though Rodney was released on bail before trial, he committed further horrific acts, killing a 21-year-old woman and a 12-year-old girl. After his rearrest in 1979, investigations revealed a shocking string of crimes, and he was eventually convicted of the murders of 7 women and girls, though some authorities estimate the true count may be as high as 130. Rodney Alcala served 31 years in prison, and it was the testimony of the runaway teenager, now an adult, that sealed his fate for good. Cheryl Bradshaw left California to live a private life, far from the public eye. The end. Thanks for watching.